something is in the way they're achieving the occupations, engaging with the occupations of childhood, they're being held back.
You see your child struggle and you don't know how to help them, then that's really scary. So as a parent, you make 100 mistakes every single day.
Hi, I'm Chris Shrubsole and welcome to School Talk, the podcast where we have meaningful conversations about education, learning, and those issues that matter most to students, to parents, and to teachers. With over 10 years experience in international schools, I've seen firsthand the challenges, but also the opportunities in learning today. Each week, I'll sit down with inspiring guests to share stories, insights, and strategies on how we can help shape the future of education. Whether you're here to grow, to learn, or to spark change, this is the place for you. So let's get started.
Welcome to School Talk. Today, I'm joined by Adam, the CEO and Medical Director of Hakkini. So first of all, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
And today we're going to talk about what you do, a little bit about occupational therapy, and then go from there. So kick us off. Occupational therapy, what is it to you?
Imagine first what occupations are. Most people think it's their job. It's the things you need and want to do. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist. Hold a pencil, kick a football, sit and listen to teacher, wipe their bum, do their buttons, all those things that are building blocks of development. Something is in the way they're achieving the occupations, engaging with the occupations of childhood, they're being held back. Their learning and development is being curtailed, and an occupational therapist like myself can help.
That must bring a lot of misconceptions to it. What are some of the common misconceptions you get around the...
If you have a classroom full of 30 kids, a perfect experiment, you have a massive control group. So if you see a kid who's struggling with their area, it's very obvious. So the number one referral for OTs will be handwriting. Often that's just the tip of the iceberg. But if you look at something even as small as the kid's handwriting, something like that, that's single occupation there, that can also have a massive impact on the child's confidence of their motivation to go to school in the first place. Had kids who struggle with handwriting for years and really affected their just interest in learning and exploration. And you had this kid who was a fireball of curiosity into dinosaurs and space and everything else. And as he's dragged himself through school, doing things that seemed to come easily to his peers, but were always a struggle to him, it just knocked him down. Yeah. It's like I had this metaphor, a little thought experiment I do with parents and teachers. You went to yoga class every day and everyone else is head to toe Lululemon and doing floating crows and flying dogs and whatever all around the room, and it was so easy, and you're absolutely shaking, sweating, feel awkward, feel too hot. You get given out to and you try something, you don't understand how to do the thing right. It's like having to go back to a yoga class every single day. And everyone else is always getting better and they just don't know how to improve.
Yeah, because you see some kids with handwriting and you go and check their work and they cover it. They show, like, they don't want to show you because, as you said there's that comparison to their peers.
Yes. And sometimes if you ask that same kid, tell me about the Roman Empire, tell me about your Fortnite skin you're rocking right now. They'll talk all day long, they'll talk their ears off. Because that curious kid, any kid is a machine made for learning and development. Come that way out of the box. That is a little child brains are an amazing thing. But man, it's tough being a kid, especially small little losses on a day-to-day basis. And they grind you down. My specialty is child and adolescent mental health. And it's really an important area because who this kid is at the time you get to 11, 12, 13, that's the adult they're going to be.
Yeah.
That stuff doesn't watch out. It stays with you for a long, long time. So safeguarding that and having these positive experiences, it doesn't mean you nerf the world and it doesn't mean you make things easy. Far from it.
So talk to us a bit about there. You've got these small little indicators, let's say. Do they lead to something more, kind of autism, sensory overload, things like that?
Can do. So if you imagine any of these, so let's get into diagnosis then. So a useful thing about diagnosis, and you're going to have neurodiversity. So neurodiverse brains, they're different out of the box. So it's just the metaphor I use here is like a PC or a Mac. It's a different operating system. It experiences the software in a different way. You experience the world in a different way of what we call neurotypical people. And it's just different. It's not good or bad. For assessment, the reason I would advocate for assessment is to get a better understanding of child's strengths and difficulties, and that advises what you can do. Sometimes it's just these areas of the brain are still a little fuzzy. We can get into detail. We can make these kind of wires intertwine and speak to each other a little bit more efficiently. And then these activities will seem, and you want to show the child their own improvement. They really need to see, okay, here's where I am. You need the young person's emotional engagement in their own goals, and this is where I'm moving towards, and for them to see that change. Because if they're working on something hard, you can sit back a little bit, because then they're motivated. They really see the improvement.
Explain to us the whole process. So someone would reach out to you, a school would reach out to you, you'd go in, do an initial observation. Just tell us about that process.
So if you go back right to the beginning, this is a young person whose life is difficult at schools. It's a challenge more than it really has to be. And there's something going on. There's a little issue. One of the challenges is there's a delay often in accessing services, because it's a scary thing. I have 2 daughters, 11 and 9. And the idea of, if they're struggling with something, you do as a parent, it's not that you take it personally, but there is a worry. It's the same reason I think that a lot of guys put off going to the doctor if you have aches and pains, but yeah, it's fine. I won't worry about it. So the delay accessing services, the anxiety doesn't go away. So there's still a worry. The young person maybe has a couple of good days, maybe then they have a couple of bad days as well. And this pause for accessing services gets moved further and further. And this is a challenge, because we know the importance of early intervention. The quicker you can get that support in place, the more beneficial it is. The reasons for the delay in accessing services are multitude use. One of them is, man, it's expensive. You think, okay, we'd like to explore this, but do we go see a psychiatrist? Do we go see a psychologist? It's this much per hour. I don't know. And then you'll have very well-meaning people telling you, my Uncle Ginny was the exact same when he grew up. My cousin was the same. Now he's fine, but he works for NASA. So it's a wait and see thing. Boys, they grow into speech later than girl. Boys only boys. All this personality stuff. And there's a discussion between the line between what's personality and pathology. If it's stopping the child doing the things they want to do, speak to someone like me.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that become a bit of a lightning rod for anxious parents, and at least, is because I do the stuff like what we're doing today. I just make myself kind of visible, having conversations on Dubai Eye and social media. So once you do work like this for parents for a while, and I'm here 13 years, parents want to tell other parents who are anxious, because you're accessible. And I love it when parents reach out to me and just tell me a very simple WhatsApp message. We'll have a couple of voice notes back and forth. I guarantee if I'm not the guy, I know the guy. I'll point you in the right direction. And it's just that beginning process. The way I approach schools now, the model I like and the model we have at Hakkini is placing the therapist in the school. If you have a concern, we can ask the therapist just to pop in the classroom informally for 10 minutes, have a little chat with the parent, see the child in class, and then have a quick conversation with you afterwards, all free of charge. There's no hassle barrier. There's no emotional leap you have to do to access that support. So it's making it as close to you as possible. And then after that observation, after that conversation, it could be as simple as giving you some reading material, or giving the teacher some free advice to make the morning routine or sleep or meal times or buttons, anything easier, because there's so much you can do as a parent at home. But then if additional support and additional kind of therapies are warranted, also talking me through one step at a time what that process looks like. So then, and even if you never became my patient, for example, you always have my number, and always there, even knowing that there's someone you can speak to, it's so reassuring, because it doesn't exist until parents make it or they find somewhere and go to provide that support.
Yeah, I think definitely having the communication, but the right communication as well, is so important, because you could go online and you could search these things, but you don't know what kind of information you're getting. Like, we had a speech therapist on a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying exactly like you, even if I give you some material to read, you know it's come from a credible source. You know you're getting credible information, and I can just give you a few tips that might help.
100%. And Google is now your friend. It's really great information out there, but it's very polarized. And there's amazing people. There's great resources I can point anyone towards. But especially if you take anything in the area of neurodiversity, take the area of autism, for example. So next month's Autism Awareness Month. And there's massively all over the place opinions of causes, the treatments, cures, concerning as well, because not only is it misinformation, or not only is it I think it's unethical, but it also delays them access to the information that would actually help. So there's an opportunity cost to bad work. The only thing worse than no therapy support is bad therapy support.
Yeah.
So I take this responsibility really seriously, because the one decision parents get to make is who to trust and who to turn to. So if parents decide Adam's man, I carry the weight of that really, really heavily, and I'm going to do everything I can. Even the idea of for therapists committing to their own professional development. You shouldn't be the same therapist you were 5 years ago. You have to be getting better because you're taking the seat of someone who could be doing an amazing job. So you owe it to these parents to do an amazing job.
No support is better than bad support. You're a parent. You can't afford OT. You can't afford this. You're desperate because like we said at the beginning, you're desperate as a parent to do your best for your kid. So I think you do go online, don't you?
Yeah.
Do read these things. So it's kind of urging parents here to speak to a professional, speak to your kids' class teacher, speak to somebody who can direct you in the right direction. Because I get it, you are desperate as a parent. And if financially there's that barrier, then you look for other alternatives.
And it's a really important one. I think, honestly, most of the benefit I've given parents is probably not in the four walls of a clinic. It's probably advice I give people who reached out online and connected them, because there's myself. I do all these activities on Instagram and these games you can play at home. My name is Adam Griffin, by the way.
Yeah.
No one knows this.
Yeah.
Adam the OT. To everyone, 99% of people that know me that are not direct family, and Adam the OT, because over COVID, my wife encouraged me to start a YouTube channel and do these little motor skills activity videos we could do at home with my daughters. And I really, if I look back in the notes, my daughters were really, really young back then.
Yeah.
It's very sweet, but it became really, really popular with a lot of parents, especially therapists who were looking for activities that folks could do at home with equipment they have around the house, or just tools and utensils and stuff. And that became really important because that's therapeutic. There's nothing, OT, I think it's the greatest job ever. It's not rocket surgery, man. There's no like massive, complicated, hugely proprietary treatment approaches. We do have some good, like fun things in our bag of tricks, but everything this young person does in their daily experience can be therapeutic.
Yeah.
So a good example of this. One of the things I really like about my delivery model in Hakkini is the idea we have clinicians who have a really high standard of clinical skill deliver that clinical skill in a compassionate, collaborative way where families feel that they're listened to and they're part of the process. But the third part is the one that's most pertains to this conversation, is it's this holistic approach that doesn't just want benefit in the clinic, but also the community in the classroom. And you have a big old TV in reception areas, and I use these to showcase my friends in the community. These are people who do piano and art and rugby and football, horse riding and sailing and swimming and all these different things. There's no financial back and forth at all. It's just people out there doing good work. Everything these individuals do is therapeutic, as much so as anything I'm doing. So if the child goes to my friend Mohammed, who's horse riding, a non-verbal ASD kid, that's stunningly therapeutic for that young person. That's a really important thing for them to do. And for me, connecting the family with what I'm doing, making sure the guys in the classroom feel empowered and supported and have the skills they need, and then connecting with these little islands of support. If you're a family of a child who's struggling, your world gets real small real fast, because if you try and expand it, you go to a birthday party, or you go to cinema and the child has a big meltdown, let's not do that again. That's horrible. So the temptation is to circle the wagons, go home, make your universe small. Here's the kicker. Brace yourself, everyone, because when you make your universe small and it's you and him against the world, right on, Dad, but eventually it's just him against the world.
Yeah.
So you do need to find these supports. You need to get out there. And that's scary. So when families can't work with me and I help them find these little stepping stones on the way to independence and the way to growth and the way to hope.
I completely agree that kind of you need to, as difficult as it might be, but going out and doing those experiences is the key. That's from a parent perspective. A parent can do that on the weekend. A kid in school and a teacher is seeing that a kid's struggling with this. What would you say initially? What is the teacher looking out for? So a kid is struggling in class. Is it their communication? We touched on it earlier. Is it their handwriting?
In fact, one of the best business things I do, I guess, is do teacher trainings. So teachers, if you have a child in the class, for example, I have a lot of kids who have, a common one I'm actually getting the last 3 years is PDA. So pervasive demand avoidance, or pathological drive for autonomy is that's in the term of this. It's like the diagnosis is the first one. The terminology, but neurodiverse, nearly like is the second one there. So if you see here, those two as a bit of a tangent there. So PDA is pathological demand avoidance. It's a terrifying group of words. The word pathological, for starters. If you have a PDA kid in your class, for example, or a child who has big sensory needs and seems really emotionally dysregulated, then it's not the behavior that is stressful or anxiety producing. It's your responsible, like, guy, what do I do? But it's not knowing how to respond to the question this child is posing you in the classroom that day. So when I go to classrooms and teach teachers, this is how you identify these kids. This is why when you have a therapist and very available, boots on the ground in the school, if there's anything you're concerned about, a lot of the time you have this kind of clusters of skills. So it's like a collage. So you'll have things, for example, a child who has ADHD, a good percentage of the time they'll have what's called comorbidity, which is another horrible sounding word. Just means there's other things going on. So they have attentional difficulties, but they very often have stress difficulties as well. And you get this kind of perfect storm where kid wasn't attending to teacher the first time, so kind of missed some of the directions. Then you get this executive function, organizational skill difficulties. So it's how to see, okay, what is it that's holding that child back? As a teacher, you just really have to know, okay, there's something going on here. Who you going to call?
Yeah.
Not Ghostbusters in this case, it's going to be the OT or speech therapist or whoever, but someone there who can just kind of have a conversation with you. There's some like questionnaires that I use and just present to teachers. We'll say, come on, we'll say, what's the 3 issues you feel if the child is like, let's hold them back a little bit. And then importantly, what's something to do really well? What the strength as well. So just starting to pull on that thread and see, okay, is there anything that's specifically holding this child back? And if we take this away, are they going to be off to the races? For example, a common one, the most common one I would say, apart from handwriting, this teachers really struggle with sensory difficulties.
Yeah.
So a child who's STEMI has difficulty sitting still. Maybe they're almost like sensory sensitive, so they have difficulty with loud noises, get anxious quite easily in response to sensory stimulation. It's slightly counterintuitive, because the best thing you do is before the child presents with this thing, you can see he's already dysregulated, but then you see it. It's like, I don't wait till you're thirsty to have a drink. We kind of want to keep his sensory cup topped up, and then it becomes a lot easier. For teachers, the kind of ultimate message is, if there's anything that gives you pause about this young person, there is no benefit from what even seeing if you had a therapist available who can just pop in and have a conversation with you, and then join the dots between you, the parent, and the child, and then see how you can all collaborate towards a better future.
So you just mentioned there, you've got the teacher, the parent, the OT, the boots on the ground. That collaboration piece it's tough between a parent and a teacher sometimes. Throw another person in the mix makes it even more difficult. And sometimes there isn't even an OT in the building.
Yes. I would say on occasion, yes. Sadly, this is often the case. Demonstrably, this is what often happens. In theory, it shouldn't. If that relation, because if you have a really good OT, if you have an OT especially who is very adept at school-based practice, or I think CAMS OT in particular, because you're not meant to add more fuel to the fire. You're meant to be the person that comes in and kind of like the CEO role, you align all these people's kind of efforts. Because when I go into these TAC meetings, these team around the child meetings, it's not that people aren't working hard enough. Often I'll have one I did recently, and there was the teacher, LSA, there was an ABA therapist, speech, OT, psychologist, parents, of course, and there was someone else. Can't remember who the other person was.
See, that must be daunting for a parent, though.
It is.
From my perspective, if I went into one of the girls' club, like there was a meeting, Chris, can you come in today? And you walk in, my God, there's a lot of people in here.
Yeah.
That must throw you. Yeah.
Not anymore. And once upon a time, perhaps. But I like, I can see possibly it's why I like doing things like this. I like talking to people. I'm interested in people. What I'm most interested in, I only worked this out recently. What I'm very interested in is perspectives. Because everyone's the hero of their own story. So if you have this therapist, they working on their goals. But the sad thing is sometimes they're out of alignment. Even when I go to schools, this happens sadly quite often. I'll go to schools where the relationship between the school and the parents is quite acrimonious. So it's broken down somewhere along the way. And it's sad because nominally you both want the same thing. You both want to help this child on the journey to learning and development. But it's that collaborative relationship is kind of fallen to bits. Most of the time we can resurrect it. Most of the time we can get people back in alignment because I like a metaphor you might have noticed. So it's like people are on the boat. Imagine a big Viking ship. You have all these people on the boat and everyone's rowing super hard, but some people are rowing in opposite directions. This guy's rowing back to Norway. This guy's going to Ireland. And everyone's sweating and working so hard and don't understand where the boat's going round and round. Guys, if we just get in alignment with these things, and that's when you do need something, well, the term in kind of clinically is called a care coordinator. So someone who kind of understands the perspectives and can get everyone in alignment, even if you have a situation where it's broken down over time. There are times, a new school, is the best way forward. Not always. The reason I'd say that is it's mostly because the child perhaps has associations and habituations in that context. So sometimes behaviors, or when they transition, for example, the little school, the big school, a chance to make new friends, it's new opportunities. They're not carrying the baggage of the previous experience and with that, but that blank slate, the new fresh canvas, doesn't mean everything's going to be great. Grass is not always greener. The grass is greener if you get there and your farming practices are better than they were in the old grass. So you have to do new things. Like one of the very few things Einstein people think he said, they actually said, because most of them are apocryphal, is this idea the definition of insanity is running the same experiment again and again, expecting different results. So it doesn't happen in isolation. So we have to think, okay, what can we do differently? And if something isn't working, if the kind of mental health, we have complex situations. If there's a situation where there's someone not in alignment, it's part of my job to try and educate them. It's not just, I'm working hard, so it's not my problem. No, he's your patient, he's your problem. So I speak a lot with therapists and teachers and parents and try and kind of build these bridges, because when if you imagine the boat analogy, everyone's rowing so hard, you're going to get there a lot faster if we're all rowing in the same direction. So it's not working harder, it's working in a complementary fashion.
Yeah, because you've mentioned their perspectives, but I think a lot of it comes down to the communication and the relationship part. The relationship part with a parent and a teacher, everyone wants the best for that kid. And there sometimes is difficulty in relationships when the parent thinks you're not doing enough, or the teacher thinks the parents could be doing something slightly different. But I've said this before, we always say, my wife and I, no one's a dick for a reason. A parent isn't rude to a teacher.
True.
Because they're for the sake of being rude. They just have their kid so much at heart that they're just so passionate about it.
Yeah.
And you just, like you said there, you just need everyone to align. You need a third voice, don't you?
You do, Chris. I love it. You said the magic word there, which is communication. So it's this misunderstanding. It was because anyone else's life experience is opaque to you. You don't know what they went through that day. You don't know what their classroom experience is like. So you only have your view of their experience. So, and this is why I think my parents, thankfully, the parents I work with, the kids, the families I work with, they are very strong advocates of me. It's very nice. It's like the nicest compliment I could get. And
sorry to interrupt here. Do you think you got better at your job when you had your own kids?
1000%.
Yeah.
It also made me realize how much this stuff I used to come out with. I'm like, oh God, I have this running joke. Again, I'm making no friends with therapists today, but if you have therapists that don't have kids, it's kind of like, I'll put an asterisk. Great therapist. Don't get me wrong. I know amazing therapists that don't have kids, but especially when you advise, I used to advise things like bedtime routines and things, everyday practice. I'm like, oh my God, man.
Yeah.
It seems, that's the theory. That's how it should work. No, man. And when you have your own kids, I did it this morning. I'm a massive hypocrite because my wife will joke with me. I have 2 daughters, and every morning they'll leap on top of me and hit me in the face with their socks. They want me to put their socks on. My daughters are 11 and 10 years old. They're very, very capable of putting their own socks on. But it's a nice little fun dynamic.
But that's the routine you have at home. Yeah. But so, if you prescribe that on paper, everyone should do their own uniform, do this because it's good for their motor skills and stuff. Like in reality, it doesn't happen, does it?
100%.
So it's all with a pinch of salt. Kind of
exactly.
Yeah.
But then it gains the choice. So I had a mom that I work with recently. It's a nice one too. And she wanted her little boy, or I think someone wanted the wee boy, might have been dad, to brush his own teeth. So he was like, no, he's a big boy now. He should brush his own teeth. But this time where mom brushed his teeth in the morning routine was a little 5 minutes they had, both looking in the mirror. They would listen to music. That's a beautiful little dynamic.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to lose that. It's like, man, there you go.
Yeah.
So there's always something going on. So that's fine. There's a choice. By all means, you brush his teeth as long as you want to. There's zero judgment. And there's so much judgment and guilt involved in parenting and child development. And it's getting the kind of advice and getting kind of someone to listen to and talk over these things where you feel the child, their learning and development isn't being held back for any reason. You're making progress. Even kids I work with who really, really struggle and a lot of fundamental skills are difficult for them. Even if you feel like the road ahead's really long and tough, if you're making progress, if you know next week's going to be just that 0.1% better than this week, then you can feel hopeful. It's when you feel plateaued or you don't know what to do to help your child. That's terrifying, man. I feel like a hypocrite when I have my own kids. I also understand emotionally how scary it is. When you have your own kids, man, you have no idea. And then you realize, oh my goodness, take a bullet for this little guy in a second, and how powerful that is. And then when you see your child struggle and you don't know how to help them, then that's really scary. So then when these parents come to me and says, can you help? That's a big request. And I'm going to go to the ends of the earth to help these families if I can.
Have you ever had a case where a parent comes to you, says, look, Adam, I need help, but they're the problem. Not the problem, but there's something that they could change. I'm like, you know what? If you change this dynamic, it would have a massive impact.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a tricky conversation there.
It's tricky. It's a very necessary conversation. So, temptingly sometimes the therapy can be, again, God, I seem very judgmental and all that, because I don't mean to, but you can get comfortable. It's too easy to just do the work, get busy in the classroom, kid has fun, they go home. But sometimes there's elephants in the room. It's always elephants in the room. Every room in therapy is full of elephants. Yeah. So a good one. I'll give you an example that I have a child coming in with motor skills difficulties, and they're like, okay, but I can see mom's on her phone the whole time, and we kept checking it through the consultation, and it spends a reception area in the phone for the whole session. And again, I don't mean this in a judgmental way, but then they're like, okay, well, I have no space in my schedule, but they want to make, okay, you're going to do 3 OT sessions a week. I don't do that normally. And he has to improve his strength and his fine motor skills. But then I'll say, okay, let's talk about your lifestyle. Let's talk about what we do as a family, blah, blah, blah. So I have these cheap, pedometers, very cheap old Daiso kind of ones. Are getting them Amazon for really cheap, and they only count steps. I want the child to wear this for 3 days and come back to me, and then see, okay, so the child comes back and they've got 2,000-3,000 steps, and that's
for the 3 days.
Yeah. That armchair has moved more than this child has. So, and for a sensory seeking child like this lad, that I want to see 15,000 steps minimum. So if you don't have enough opportunities for natural age appropriate play experiences, you can't therapy your way out of that. You can't buy your way out of that. So then you're thinking of things. It's a little bit like, many years ago, I used to work on health and fitness and personal training. This is when I was in late teens, early 20s. And it's the kind of boring lifestyle stuff that really matters. It's the everyday little things.
The neat movement.
The neat movement. Exactly. There you go. And there's a child development aspect to that as well. So sometimes the main factor that's affecting the child's development is, and it could be the family's lifestyle, it could be the parents' knowledge, it could be, but you don't want to frame this as a guilt thing. It's not about, okay, no, you did the wrong thing. No, as a parent, you make 100 mistakes every single day, and you can't be anxious. It's more thinking, okay, here's what I think would be beneficial, and this is what you can do right now.
Yeah.
Don't worry about any guilty sort of things. I'm going to make it easy for you. If I'm trying to get someone to go to the gym, I'm going to make going to the gym a positive experience for you. If you drag yourself and hate yourself every second you're there, you're not going to keep going.
Yeah.
But if you can make it something kind of where you feel empowered, an example of another parent, just 100 of these, is a little boy really, really struggling in class, and the mom understood talked to her about sensory needs and all of these things. And he said, okay, we need to move more. He just got a new bike. So they're going to get up at 5:30 a.m. Well done, mom. She's carrying the boats for sure. David Goggins will be proud. But mom would wake up super early, and her and the little man would go for a ride on the bikes around the block for about 30 minutes. The kid was a different kid in school, and they thought he was on medications. They thought it was okay, what was he taking? It's no, he just got an opportunity to move and settle in and find his body in space early in the morning. And it was such a lovely experience. Everyone else was still asleep, and mom and the kid were smiling and cycling around the block, and it was beautiful.
Well, and he gets that extra time with his mum as well.
Oh, exactly.
Potentially wouldn't get before. Yeah,
man. And so this is what you call child-led practice and family-centered practice. So therapy cannot be ever done to the child. It has to be done with the child. And this is the perfect example of that, where you're just building these supports. And you can't be prescriptive. I wouldn't tell every family to do that. But when you understand why you're doing these things, you'll find the way that works for you, your family, your context, and your personality.
Yeah. And I completely agree there. There's so many things. It's not a one size fits all, is it? It's different for every single kid, every single family, every single dynamic.
And the sign with that is some therapists, I don't think, appreciate that enough. That I was guilty of this. I used to write these home programs for families. Yeah. Sensory diets, they're called. And they were 14 pages long. Oh, I changed fonts and everything. Oh, they were great. Yeah. And he did nothing. He went nowhere because I never thought how the family fits all these complex things I recommended into the morning routine. So you make them really easy, one step at a time, something very fun and simple. If you like the stuff like James Clear's habit formation stuff, BJ Fogg does another one called Small Habits, where you think, okay, how can I find the easiest way to put this into your daily routine and then make it a fun thing, a fun value added that actually helps as well. And then that's a great starting off point. And you gradually build these supports that actually are enjoyable to do, but will have long-term benefit too.
Yeah. Yeah, if you try and add 14 things to our morning routine in this house, no chance whatsoever. A school doesn't have an OT on site. What would you recommend from a parent to do, for a teacher to do? What's the steps moving forward with that?
I'm trying to find another way of not just saying message me, but yes, message me. So you do want, if you don't have an OT on site, definitely speak to the teacher and then reach out and even Googling OTs in Dubai and look around. If it's specifically for here, if it's in Dubai, then there's lots of services around. It's not just me. There's lots of great therapists, but finding the one that you connect with. So finding that emotional connection really, really quickly. One of the things I like, again, about my model is if a parent messages, so say if they're looking for therapy support and they find me or they find Hakkini through WhatsApp or Instagram or the website and they see, speak to us. Okay, DM Hakkini. And they'll say, okay, they'll get prompted. Is it support for you or your child? And is it OT, speech or psychology? That's the only thing. So they'll message that. The next person who's going to speak to them is going to be the person who will help them solve that problem. They're not speaking to admin. They're not speaking to anyone else who will have to feel like they're jumping through hoops to understand more. No, they'll have a normal, a clear, easy and open conversation with the therapist who they identified. If they're not sure who to speak to or they mention my name, it'll definitely be me you speak to. Yeah. And then I'll have a little chat with them, get to understand their case a little bit, and then be able to kind of advise them what the next steps are. Yeah. And it might not be going to be, for example, a lot of families approach me for feeding issues. A child's very picky eater, has sensory aversion to feeding. It's not my
area of expertise. Yeah.
Not my circus, not my monkeys. That was the expression someone taught me last week and I love it. So that's not my area, but I do have therapists, my friend Laura Reed. Hello, Laura. Tremendous and really loves this area of practice. So this is her area of passion. When I'm hiring therapists, for example, in the interview process, I'll ask them what part of the job they like the most because that's what I want to promote. I like people doing the part of the job they love the most. So I'll refer parents on and just a little bit of honesty and a little bit of openness because there's a huge distrust of service providers here because I think it's a business. They're just out for money. It's like when you go to buy a TV or something in the store here and there you ask, can it do this? Yep. Yeah. 100% can do everything. Whatever you want, it can do. It's like, no, man, because then I can't get the information I need and helping parents get the information they need is kind of what I'm all about. So if you're a teacher or you're a parent and you're looking for OT support, people like myself who are very visible, don't be afraid to direct message me. I will get back to you and then help find someone to help you find the answers you need. You don't have to jump into therapy straight away, but just take the first step. Don't put it off. It might just be a conversation and some free advice. But if you do want to find therapies, then if your child would benefit from them, having someone talk you through the next steps before you pay for anything, know what you're paying for.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes the hardest part is that first part, that initially reaching out. But yeah, that was the right time to plug yourself. So well done. Yeah. But I'll put all of Adam's information, contact details on the show notes and tag you on the social media stuff. But yeah, I think initially the first step is sometimes the hardest. Hearing it. And I love what you said there. Is the support for you, yourself, or is it for your child? Yep. Knowing you might not know who it's for initially. You just need that conversation. And even as a husband and wife, you're thinking, look, he's struggling again. Potentially you start blaming each other, something else they're doing. Yeah. All of those things going through your head. Like you said, you need kind of a person to come in and speak to you both, all of you, to help those things. If it's something you care about, it's going to be something that I care about too. So that dynamic between mom and dad and making sure everyone's on the same page and answering everyone's questions. So if sometimes I'll have dads like, no, thanks, Adam, but I don't think it's part of the process. Like, no problem. I 100% understand. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'll just give you the information so you can make an informed choice. Yeah. And I'll outline options too. It's not, you have to do this. It's do this. For example, I had a family coming to see me from Abu Dhabi twice a week and they drive the kids in the car twice as long as he's with me. Yeah. So I said, this is not a good idea, guys. So you can't do this anymore. And then dad in the room was like, I told you. I was like, okay, that didn't help, Dad. Let's calm that down. I knew it. Yes. So I was like, no, but you have to, if you're being pragmatic about these things, there's a cost value. There's an organizational value to it. I'll tell you what the
I would recommend. But then that's not the end of that conversation. It's a dialogue. Like every therapeutic relationship should be a conversation. It's not just the report and then God bless, off you go. Do your best of luck. It's more like, no, my WhatsApp, you've probably heard it buzzing quite a bit in the background there, and that will be parents who are trying to reach me with questions or concerns or something. And it takes very little effort for me to just point them in the right direction, and it can mean a lot to that family.
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest takeaway, it seems to be such a recurring theme, is the communication part, is the relationships part, is the perspectives part.
Yeah.
Is that knowing what different situations kids are in, parents in, families are in, teachers are in. A teacher could be so overwhelmed by all of this and not know what to do. Yeah. Because unfortunately, some schools just aren't equipped to have OTs and things on the ground. So just from any perspective, it's really, really difficult just to reach out.
Yeah. And I love, like, there's so much value. I really, really enjoy doing, a lot of schools have like Q&As. They have mornings for parents, or some parent groups will have coffee mornings, invite me to speak to them. I absolutely love doing these because they're really good and really connects you with the people that may not, if you imagine that there's a certain percentage of parents who will come to see me in clinic, there's hundreds of them that would benefit but never get through the doors. So anything I can do to reach as many families that would need support as possible, I'm going to be there for.
Yeah, perfect. Well, yeah, hopefully today sheds some more light, some more insight onto that. So Adam the OT, Adam Griffin.
Yes, indeed.
There we go. Got it. Thank you so much for coming on School Talk. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Really, really pleasure.
Yeah. And yeah, we've said it loads. If the first step is just reaching out, ask a few questions, get a little bit of guidance, I think it will go a long way. But yeah, again, if you find this useful or you think someone might learn from it, share it with them and we'll continue to grow. So once again, thank you for coming on. This has been School Talk. My name is Chris Shrubsole. Bye for now.